In a small classroom at the University of Western Australia, a young woman sketched an idea on a whiteboard. It wasn't flashy or perfect, just a dream to make design simple for everyone. Her name, Melanie Perkins. She wasn't from Silicon Valley, nor did she have deep tech roots. But she believed that the future of design didn't need to be complicated. Melanie's first startup was Canva. It was Fusion Books. She and her boyfriend, Cliff Albrecht, built it from their mom's living room. It let students design their own yearbooks online, replacing clunky desktop software. That humble experiment gave them their first real taste of solving real problems, and taught them how simplicity could unlock creativity. Melanie flew across the world to pitch in Silicon Valley. She faced blank stares, rejections, and rooms full of men who didn't get her vision. But she kept refining the pitch again and again. She wasn't chasing hype, she was building something useful. And finally, one investor said yes, and that changed everything. Canva's first version wasn't glamorous. It was slow, glitchy, and yet people loved it. Why? Because it let them design, even without training. Drag, drop, done, that was the promise. Suddenly, the power of design was no longer exclusive. Some investors suggested she hire a male CEO. Not because she wasn't capable, but because they weren't ready. Melanie didn't flinch. She and Cliff doubled down. They'd build this company their way or not at all. No marketing budget, no fancy launch. But Canva exploded, shared through classrooms, blogs, and small businesses. It became the silent tool behind Instagram posts, school flyers, startup decks. Designers were skeptical, but regular people, they felt seen. Finally, they could create too. By 2019, Canva was valued at over $1 billion. But Melanie didn't flaunt it. Her focus wasn't money, it was impact. She reinvested in product, hired inclusively, and built a culture of trust. Because true success, she believed, meant bringing everyone along. When bigger companies came knocking to acquire Canva, Melanie said no. She knew what she was building was bigger than profit. Each rejection wasn't fear, it was clarity. Canva was still just getting started, and she wasn't ready to hand it over. Melanie didn't just build a product, she sparked a movement. Design became less about aesthetics and more about access. Canva rewired how people told stories, pitched ideas, and connected. Suddenly, simplicity wasn't basic, it was powerful. And that idea kept spreading, one template at a time. Melanie believes every business has the power to do good. Canva now donates to nonprofits, plants trees, and gives design access to schools. It's not just about brand, it's about responsibility. She once said, if you have the power to help, you should. And that's the real Canva legacy. Behind the startup chaos was a love story. Melanie and Cliff weren't just co-founders, they were partners in life. They supported each other through rejections, pivots, and pressure. In 2021, they got married, quietly, without fanfare. Just two builders still building, now side by side forever. Melanie's rise is still rare. Less than 3% of venture capital goes to female-led startups. She didn't just break through, she built a path. Now she mentors, funds, and advocates for women in tech. Because changing the numbers starts with changing the system. At Canva, culture is everything. No egos, no office politics, just kindness, ownership, and impact. Even during hypergrowth, they stayed people first. From hiring rituals to celebrate fails meetings, Canva runs differently. Because success, Melanie believes, should feel good. Melanie always said Canva's success wasn't about tools, it was about empowerment. When someone creates their first resume, flyer, or pitch deck, that is the magic. Canva didn't just simplify design. It gave people permission to be seen, heard, and shared. And that changed more than workflows, it changed lives. Most startups scale fast and lose their soul. But Canva, it scaled with soul. Melanie's secret wasn't speed, it was staying human. Each hire, each feature, each policy came from purpose. That's why Canva isn't just a company, it's a culture shift. When the world shut down, Canva opened up. Remote teams needed to communicate visually, fast. Melanie's team built templates for crisis responses, virtual classrooms, and small business pivots. Instead of freezing, Canva adapted overnight. Because in chaos, simplicity becomes survival. Melanie became one of the youngest self-made female billionaires. But there were no yachts, no hype interviews. Instead, she quietly pledged most of her wealth to charity. Because wealth, she believes, is only useful if it helps others. Success never changed her, it just scaled her impact. Melanie's next goal: reach the next billion users. Not just in cities, but villages, schools, refugee camps. Anywhere someone has a story to tell, Canva wants to be there. This isn't growth for ego, it's inclusion at scale. Because when everyone can design, everyone can lead. Before Canva, Melanie faced dozens of rejections. Investors said no, engineers walked away. Her software crashed in front of live demos. But each failure became foundation. She didn't hide the cracks, she built through them. Canva didn't win because it was prettier. It won because it listened. Melanie and her team watched users struggle, then solved it over and over. Their secret wasn't innovation, it was obsession with ease. That's why it stuck. That's why it spread. As Canva grew, tech giants took notice. Adobe, Microsoft, even Google launched simplified tools to compete. But Canva didn't panic. Melanie doubled down on community, education, and the magic of drag and drop. Because Canva wasn't just a tool, it was a movement. To Melanie, templates aren't shortcuts, they're language. Each one helps someone say what they couldn't before. A wedding invite, a business plan, a protest sign. Templates became tools of expression, power, and presence. And Canva made millions feel heard. As Canva soared, critics said it made design too easy. Designers feared they'd be replaced by templates. Melanie listened but didn't apologize. She knew Canva didn't erase design. It just opened the door for more voices to create. As remote work surged, Canva became the design tool for teams. Docs, slides, whiteboards, now all visual, all collaborative. No more messy email chains or lockdown files. Just real-time creation from anywhere. Melanie didn't just simplify design. She simplified collaboration. In 2021, Canva hit a $40 billion valuation. But Melanie didn't celebrate with champagne. She announced more donations, more tools for classrooms, and more free access. For her, scale only matters if it lifts others. That's not just growth, that's legacy. Inside Canva HQ, there's a room with no hierarchy, just sticky notes, ideas, and open minds. Every week, Melanie joins team brainstorms like any other teammate. Ideas fly, laughter echoes, and no voice is louder than another. Because innovation doesn't come from the top. It comes from trust. Most Canva users never tweet, review, or post about it. Their parents making birthday invites. Teachers building lesson plans. Volunteers designing fundraisers. Melanie calls them Canva's silent champions. Because when a tool becomes invisible, that's when it's truly working. Melanie's entire journey rests on one belief. Complexity is a barrier, simplicity is power. She saw everyday people locked out of creativity by complicated tools. So she didn't just lower the gate, she rebuilt the door. And left it wide open. From a whiteboard sketch in an Australian classroom to one of the most beloved design platforms in the world. Canva didn't just grow, it bloomed. Because one woman believed that design was not a privilege. It was a right. Melanie didn't start with money, fame, or perfect timing. She started with a whiteboard and a wild idea. So here's the question. What's your whiteboard? Because if Canva taught us anything, it's this. You don't need to be ready. You just need to begin. Around the world, Canva helped launch businesses, build movements, and inspire stories. From teen entrepreneurs to disaster relief teams, millions now create without asking permission. It's more than software. It's a spark. And Melanie, she's still lighting more fires. Melanie's journey didn't begin with investors, funding rounds, or viral fame. It began with a simple question. What if design wasn't hard? That simple question became a billion-dollar answer. So whatever you're dreaming of, start small, start scrappy, start simple.